Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Hi, I'm Stephen Willis, and alongside me is Tim Thomas, and we're going to talk a little bit about Ole Miss basketball, and that is with the Ole Miss football team at 5-1. Talking basketball, Tim, at Ole Miss, as you are well aware, in October doesn't necessarily happen, but you almost have to do it this year.
Yeah, I think with Chris Beard, like you said many times, Chris Beard coming on in Oxford and all around the Southeast, people are looking to see what's going to happen. And with all this talent he has brought together, it should be an exciting year.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that really piques my interest is Ole Miss has turned over their roster, but not in a bad way. They kept the two most talented players that were on last year's roster, and they just added pieces from the transfer portal in around them. And all of a sudden you look at this roster and it's like, if everybody gets cleared and all the waivers gets granted, because we still have to find out about Brandon Murray and Musa Cisse, but if those waivers get granted, this is a 24-win team.
I like your enthusiasm. I'm not sure. It's so hard to tell right now. Beard, I've listened to a lot of his interviews, and he's real gung-ho about it, and I am too. I can see you are, but it's going to be hard to get that much. But I looked at the schedule. We have like 9 home games in the non-conference and then 9 home games in the conference. So you're supposed to win your home games, so that's could be 18, and then you get a couple here, a couple there, one here, one there. So it's definitely 20. I'm good with you, 24. I'm gonna hang around 20 to be safe.
Yeah, I'm pretty fired up about this unit, and I'm looking forward whenever they start playing. And before we get into the preview, Ole Miss is playing a basketball game this year in the Smith Coliseum. For the first time in like 5 or 6 years, they're going to be back in that building that they closed down. Are they doing anything with former players that day to bring you guys back, as that might be the last time a game like that happens?
Yeah, they have sent us out emails and all. We're all invited to come with a couple free tickets, bring your spouse or whoever. And they're honoring Rob Evans, the coach back then, and his team. Of course, that's the same team that Keith Carter was on, so that's a good thing. And I think it's great. I hadn't actually, me and my wife snuck in the Tad Pad a few years ago. There was after a ball game and at the pavilion, we snuck in a side door and looked in there. It was kind of cool to see that. They kind of kept it up. I think they've used it for a lot of the girls' sports and that type of thing. So it's going to be interesting. I'm planning on going, Lord willing, just to see how it all goes. But he's definitely got the SEC fired up. Oxford and people like you and me and the media really expected a lot out of this team.
This is going to sound silly and this is going to sound gimmicky, but Chris Beard should absolutely do this for this game. They should find some color pictures of what the floor looked like in the early 80s with almost the powder blue thing with the Ole Miss on the end, like the Gerald Glass era Ole Miss floor. And they need to recreate that exactly for this one game. Just one game. You can have the modern basketball goals in there, but just decorate the floor to where it looks like it did like Gerald Glass time frame.
Yeah, he was a great player. Yeah, I'm good with all that. I think Beard is good with marketing. I saw today he's trying to get Snoop Dogg in for one of his fireside chats, and you saw the Chuck Liddell. I'm not familiar with that guy greatly. I know he UFC, the wrestler type guy. He was there speaking to him last Saturday morning to the team. So he's open to anybody he knows that has some popularity, famous, been successful. He's willing to try things, and the Tad Pad and the fireside chats, and I think he's really big with sororities and fraternities going out. And, of course, they had the Square Jam last Friday night. I didn't go this year. I went last year. It's a good exhibition type thing for the town and for people to come. And also, the football game was the next day. So it's a good thing. He's good at that. And that's what it takes to get the fans, especially the young kids, the college kids in. And then some of us old folks, we might trickle in to some of these games. I'm hoping to go to several.
Now, did Midnight Madness with college basketball practice, did that start when you were there, or is that later on?
We never had it at Ole Miss. I think some of the other places, I know Kentucky used to have it. I'm not sure who all did. We didn't do that. He wasn't in anything like that. He wasn't a marketing type guy. He didn't care about that type of thing. He just had you for a couple of hours a day, and he was going to wear you out for the hours he had you. So it's a good thing. And then we talked about Beard. They're limited to practices these days. You have a certain amount, certain hours. Like Kiffin, you have certain hours you can practice. And he's got this new team, the culture, you call it, all the things that he's pushing to really get this team to buy in. Just like Kiffin, you got all these portal guys from here, there, and wherever, and you got to get them together and play as a team. There's no I in team.
Yeah, let's move on to the roster this year, and we'll start off with the returning players, or at least the returning players that we're expecting to make an impact. If we overlook somebody, it's not personal. It's just we're just looking at the roster and trying to piece it together. But TJ Caldwell, Jamin Brakefield, and Matthew Morrell are back and are going to presumably play massive roles for this Ole Miss team. And once you put players around those guys, like legitimate threat type players, I think we're going to see a different Matthew Morrell. I think Jamin Brakefield, who is already the leader of this team, is going to absolutely step up. And then whenever we're talking a little bit later, the height that they're going to have in the post, I think that's going to be a little bit of a game changer.
Yeah, you saw we won several games last year and towards the end of the year without these talented kids. There was a lot of talent on the team last year, but this team is ultra talented. This guy he went out and got guys that fit his system, the people that he wants, like you've talked about, the guards, the stretch. He wants them a certain height. He don't really like to go with a short fella. He likes to go with length and to guard. And his primary thing, as you're going to see, is defense. That's where he's going to head to. But we got some shooters this year. I believe, it's been a problem the last several years. I don't know how far, but he's got actually shooters. Some of these guys, Lord willing, Brandon Murray gets to come. He's a great player. Musa Sensei inside. But it's kind of weird, Bears having to try to practice not knowing about the NCAA. They're so slow. And we talked a minute ago about maybe they need to subcontract this enforcement policies to some other firm or something, a lawyer firm, something to do it better and quicker. You have to wait all this time. And like the fellow football player at North Carolina just found out Walker, he was able to play. Well, we're already halfway through the season. Just ridiculous, in my opinion, just totally not professional, but I think that's pretty well known. But this team, like you said, there are so many guys. I'll try to look at the lineup of the day. You're going to touch on that. I was looking at the lineup high, and that's what Bears have to go through. Brandon Murray, Musa Sensei, Cisse, we're not sure they're going to get to play. So you got that lineup that they're in it, Of course, you got Morrell and you got Brakefield and you got the kid from Auburn, Flanagan. So you think that might be the start lineup. But if Murray's not in there or Cisse's not in there, you definitely got Sharp. And then who's the other guy? So you got several guys. Are you going to go to a true point guard like Juju? I'm going to go ahead and go with that. Juju Murray, or is he going to be the true point guard? And you have Morrell, and you have Flanagan, and you have Brakefield and Sharp. So it's a lot of ways to pull that around. And Beard the other day in his press conference, he mentioned that. He said, I just have to, you just have to deal with stuff like someone gets hurt or one of the wide receivers, one of them gets hurt, you just have to go on push. So that's what he's dealing with. And he's done it all over. He's coached pro teams. He's coached smaller colleges. He's coached JUCO. So he knows how to pick and play. So this is not an issue for him at all.
Now, the question is, like Brandon Murray, if this goes on so long, does this just mean he sits out and he's eligible next year?
I don't know that. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that. That's a good point. And Cisse, are they going to stick around? I assume they're getting NIL money, wouldn't you think? So he's not actually playing any games. That'd be something for them to figure out. I don't know how to handle that one, but I'm hoping. Talk about Brandon Murray. He was at LSU. Mm-hmm. Will Wade gets fired, so he goes to Georgetown. Patrick Ewing gets fired. So what is he supposed to do? He could stay there and fight it out. I understand that, but he don't want to. So that's why he comes to Ole Miss. I think that's why Beard, he was the first one that Beard got out of the portal because he feels pretty sure, but who knows that he's going to be able to play. And then Musa Cisse, maybe not as much. He was at Memphis, Oklahoma State. I don't know if he had any issues. He may have some issues that we don't know about that he's putting down in his form to try to get to play. So we'll see how it goes. But regardless if those guys are in the lineup or not, and they would definitely help. We got a good talented team that we can win. We can win at least 20 games.
Yeah, everybody's seen how athletic Matthew Morrell is. Brandon Murray is more of an athlete than Matthew Morrell. I mean, he's freakishly athletic.
You've watched the video, haven't you? I can tell you watched the video.
Yeah, it's like, man, I can just see a situation where they put Juju at point guard and then basically just have two wings of Matthew Morrell and Brandon Murray with two of the bigs in the middle. And there's like, let's go. Let's do it.
And Alan Flanagan, I'm telling you, that guy's real too. He is seriously real. I've watched him last few years at Auburn, and he can play. He may be better than Murray. Just keep an eye on it. And of course, his daddy's there, so he might get to play a little bit more than one. So we'll see.
Some of the like Jamarian Sharp is 7'5", which I can't even imagine somebody being over a foot taller than me. That's just weird. I think Jamin Breakfield's going to pop up, but Austin Nunez, he was known in high school as a human bucket. He was just a scorer. He was kind of like, I think it was Oklahoma or Texas. I can't remember where he played ball, but it was almost a little bit like Chris Jackson, that reputation coming out of college. And I'm not calling this kid Chris Jackson, but it was just the walking bucket type thing. Made me think of that. I'm interested to see how Austin Nunez does. I think he's going to split time with Juju Murray. What's his name? Jalen Murray, Juju Murray. Yeah, I got it right. There's two Murrays on the team this year. I'm going to mess up on this a lot. But I think Austin Nunez has a role that he is going to kind of build on this team going forward.
It's hard to say. He played at Arizona State, and Juju played at St. Peter's. And they're both really good athletes. I've watched the videos. I watched some of their games, and we talked about Juju played for St. Peter's a couple years ago, and they beat Kentucky in the dance. So they're very good. So it's hard to say who's going to start. I don't know, and that's what we talked about, that Chris Beard really don't care who starts. He wants the top five. I think he'll play. It looks to me he may play between 8 to 10 on a regular basis, maybe more. Those guys were talented. I don't believe he got those guys in the portal and paying them what he's paying them to sit on the bench. So I think he's going to play maybe 8 to 10, and they're going to all move in and out just like the football team in the fourth quarter, right? Fourth quarter, you still refresh. You've been playing people moving in and out, and I think that's what he plans to do. But because when you play defense like he's going to expect it, you get tired. I mean, this ain't like go down and take a shot and go rest during defense. That ain't going to happen, or you ain't going to play. You are going to get to rest. You're going to sit over by Beard, but this is going to be a tough team, and he's expecting 100%. The culture he's bringing on. I love the little phrases he has. Some, but the players, you can tell the time. We got the time. We can't waste time. We got to really do these practice. We got to make sure every second counts. So he's got a lot of good ways about him that impresses me, and you can tell by some of the interviews that the kids are all bought in, definitely.
Now, there is a kid on this roster that I'm interested in, and it's not because there's any chance of him really playing. It's just something. It's Gavin Murphy, who got a scholarship. He's from California. He is 5'11". Now, that's the reason I'm interested in this, because if you look at the players that Chris Beard has on this roster, seemingly just about everybody is 6'3" or 4 to 6'9". There's some above it. There's a couple below it, but the people below it provide extra special things that Chris Beard can use. A 5'11" guard on scholarship, it's got to be an unbelievable shooter. That one has me intrigued, but I just don't think Chris Beard signs a 5'11" player unless he's like a super penetrator or something like that, because he's all about getting players 6'5" to 6'9" and just having everybody be positionless.
This guy is a shooter. You're talking about bucket getter. This guy, I saw him on several clips. He can really shoot. It's hard to say, what Beard's got in mind, but he's one of them guys that may not start and might not even play a lot. But there's certain times, you can put a sharpshooter in there like a Larry Bird to come in and just drill a few and just really get the momentum back, or go in and make a play and just make a defensive play. He's going to predominantly go with the guys you're talking about. But the guys like this guy, I'm impressed with what I saw. He's a super shooter, and I'm expecting a lot out of him too. I hope he gets to play a lot.
Yeah, and there's a lot of names on this roster, and we didn't cover everybody today, and that wasn't intentional. There's just so many new names, and as the season gets going and as we get closer, we're probably going to talk about them. So don't look at that oversight as anything intentional or anything like that. It just happened to work out that way. Now, last thing, Tim, going into year one of Chris Beard, what are the expectations?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about this before we started today. I feel good about 20 wins. I looked at the schedule. It starts off with several teams. I think they had contracts. They had to play some of these games because Kermit was there. But, there's several teams there we shouldn't have any trouble with. At least 9 to 10 wins. There's a couple teams, North Carolina State, California, Memphis. Some of those teams might be tough. We'll see how that goes. But if we get 9 or 10 out of the non-conference, and then get 9 out of the 18 of the conference, that's bumping 20. So I feel good about that. We talked about NCAA. Beard's got the attention of the public, the media. He's been around. He had some bad stuff happen, and we've talked about that. And let me briefly talk about John Riley. Last year, I was real bad on the weight guys, the strength condition guys. I think this guy knows it's not that you lift weights. It's that you got to know when to do it and when not to do it prior to a game, a day before. You got to have a time to relax and get settled down. That's kind of what I meant last year. Maybe I wasn't real clear on that. But I think it's John Riley guy. He knows. He's been with Beard, I think, about everywhere he's been. So he knows how to get these guys in shape, just like the fella in football. He does a really good job, and this is going to be defensive oriented. He's going to play 2 halves. And that last 5 minutes of the game, if they are strength conditioned properly, they're going to go ahead and play hard and make the plays, and these other teams may not.
Now, before we get out of here, just David, as a comp of the coaches that we've seen in the last 40 years, what can we expect Ole Miss to look like compared to like past Ole Miss teams? What does the Chris Beard team look like? It's
going to be so much defensive oriented, but the defense is going to lead to the offense. Kind of like the football team, you make a couple of takeaways, a fumble, or intercepted. They're going, like we talked about the no middle defense. They're going to pressure people like people's never had. They just don't. Duke does this. They pressure hard. The top teams, most sports, are defensive minded. And if you can play really good defense, it'll lead to your great offense. But he's got athletes out of this world. I'm looking for, no doubt, like we've talked, no doubt, the NCAA team. I could see us winning a couple of games in it with the players we got. If we get Murray and Cisse, I can see we could go even further. But I'm a homer, like we've talked about. Everybody's a homer because that's what we trying to do is promote Ole Miss. But with Chris Beard and he's got a great coaching staff. I mean, Pinkins and the Bird and Flanagan, those guys are good. And Win Case, those guys are good. So he's got people that he expects to help. And when they get to practice, man, those coaches are out there with them. They're working with them 1-on-1 or 1-on-5, and they're getting things done. So this practice time they are really putting a lot into it. So I'm expecting great things. I may be expecting too much. That's why I was hanging around 18. But after I looked through the schedule when it came out, I could see 20 at least. I don't know if the 24 like you talking, but if it happens, I'm all for it, man. I'm going to bring it on.
Yeah, if they hit 24, you're looking at like a 5 seed in the NCAA tournament.
True.
So it'll be interesting. Chris Beard has never lost an opening round NCAA tournament game, by the way.
Yeah, that says a lot. We've talked about his record, where he's been, Oakland, Texas. He's successful. He has a culture. He builds the culture. He has the kids buy into it. They asked in an interview the other day, Alan Flanagan, why are you here? Chris Beard, that's why I'm here. He was at Little Rock with his father, and he said, I'm here for Chris Beard. I appreciate what he does. I know how he coaches. He coaches them hard, but he's fair. We talked about he mentioned, what is that phrase, structured freedom. That's what he believes in, structured freedom with his teams, that sometimes, we've talked about coaches that jerk people out real quick if they made a mistake or something. He's not like that. He likes to have a little freedom to get used to playing, and you don't do that like some other coaches do. So I think the kids really like that and appreciate that.
Yeah, and as we get close to basketball season, you'll see a little bit more of Tim Thomas on the show as we're getting ready to start up our basketball coverage as well. Thank you for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Tim, thank you so much for stopping by. We got football going at 5-1. Basketball is getting ready to get started. It's going to be genuinely a great time of year come November.
Yeah, November the 6th is the first game against Alabama State. So it's right here. It's 26 days away when I counted when we were taping. But it's a fun time, something to get fired about. The football team's doing well, and I hear the baseball team had some real good recruiting through the portal also. So Ole Miss is looking good. I'm proud to be a Rebel.
All right, Tim. I'll talk to you a little bit, babe.
All right, thank you.